I want to thank you all for your prayers while I was on pilgrimage in Rome. Tremendous experience. It was absolutely mind-blowing and completely wonderful. But I got to be honest with you, after a 23-hour travel day to get back to the United States, when I crossed the bridge coming back into Maine, I was so glad to be home. There is no place like Maine. There is no place like home. It's just something about this land where you and I have made our home that just feels right, that just sits right. And I think people all throughout time, doesn't matter where they're from, they have this connection, this real connection to home. Home is a place where we are safe, where we are sound, where we belong, where we can learn and grow and flourish, where we are nourished, where we find rest, where we can be ourselves, and more importantly, where we are loved. Of course, we know that home means so much more than just a dwelling place or even a plot of land, although these are usually inevitably part of what constitutes home for us. It remains the case that the need for home is one of our most fundamental needs, and most of us spend our entire lives trying to make sure that we attain and then sustain a happy, healthy, holy home. Now, our readings today make me think a lot about home and how ultimately our desire to be at home is really less about kind of nestling in a quaint, cozy little cottage and being back on the soil where we were raised, and is really, I think, evidence of an even deeper longing that we have to be at home in God. St. Paul says this beautifully in our second reading today. He says, I have accepted the loss of all things, and I consider them so much rubbish that I may find Christ and be found in him. In other words, nothing else really matters. Riches, fame, the esteem of the world, power. If I belong to Jesus Christ, if I can be found in him, if I can find in him my true home, then wherever he is, and I am there, I am at home. Consider our first reading today. There's some important context behind Isaiah's words. He has this beautiful message for the people of Israel who've been in exile in Babylon for several years. And this is the message. They're coming home. They're coming back to Israel. See, their sinfulness had led to Nebuchadnezzar's besieging of Jerusalem and their subsequent deportation to a foreign land. But now God has offered them his sweet mercy and forgiveness, and so he's bringing them back where they belong. And Isaiah paints this very vivid picture for them. God will construct a great road going straight through the desert, through the sea, through the mountains, through every imaginable obstacle. He will create a straight path for his people to come back into their homeland. We can only imagine the joy of the people of Israel at hearing this, and how much they must have actually rejoiced when they came home. Now, our gospel today tells us of an even more profound homecoming, experienced in the very depths of one's heart and soul. A woman laden with an immense amount of shame after having been caught in the very act of adultery is left exposed physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to the judgment and sneers and condemnation of the crowd. The scribes and Pharisees drag her in her shame to Jesus, where they attempt to test him by making him decide if she should be stoned to death. This is an awful scene. Now, the woman has, without a doubt, done something terrible. She's guilty of adultery, of doing something that destroys or at least deeply wounds families and homes and communities. Recompense has to be made, justice has to be served, and the damage that she has done has to be repaired. And so the crowd calls for her death, because the interpretation at the time is that that's what the law of Moses demanded. That's going to set things right. Put down the sinner, and it will erase the bad that they've done. Get rid of the poison, cut out the infection, and do away with the sinner. So the scribes and the Pharisees encircle her, You can just imagine they got their stones ready in their hands. They have to preserve their home after all. And this woman's sin has threatened it. But now it's up to Jesus. And they await for him to respect their law and their land and their home, and to speak the words of condemnation and to do away with this woman. But of course, this is not what happens. Unwittingly, these guys make a fatal mistake. They have the audacity to take this terrible, sinful, shameful woman and place her right next to Jesus. No safer place could they have brought her. There is nowhere else in the entire world that could have been more of a haven, more of a home for her than to be right at his side. So what does Jesus do with this woman? What does he do with the sinful crowd that is trying to trap him into making a decision that could either get him in trouble with the Jewish authorities for disrespecting the Mosaic law by letting her go, or in trouble with the Roman authorities by calling for her execution? What does Jesus do with this mess? Well, he doesn't play games. He equalizes the situation. Let the one who is among you without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. Now, this isn't just some wit that solves a riddle here. These are words of power, spoken by the one and only true judge. And it disperses this gang of accusers and sends them off to consider their own brokenness and sinfulness. And after the mob leaves, Jesus begins to deal with the woman one-on-one. Now, he doesn't affirm her in her adultery, and he doesn't minimize what she's done. She's guilty, she's done wrong, and she's hurt the community, and yes, this has to be dealt with. But instead of kicking her while she is down, instead of throwing her to the curb and doing away with her, Jesus does something profound. He bends down near her, and then standing and straightening himself up, he brings her up with him. He makes what is crooked straight. He makes what is broken whole. And he shows this woman that what she was looking for in her sin is not what will make her happy. What will make her happy is finding her place, her home, at his side. My friends, we are, each of us and all of us, this woman, we are guilty, we are sinful, we are broken. And in our sin and brokenness, we sometimes destroy what is good. We tear things down and ruin what is good in this world in our vain and selfish attempt to search for self-fulfillment and those fleeting moments of pleasure without a thought of the damage that we cause. Now, there is good cause out there for our stoning, and I think we can agree that we each have done enough to deserve it. But thanks be to God, we do not find ourselves ultimately before the judgment of man. As we sometimes lay in our shame, encircled by shouts of condemnation and guilt, can we find our place, our saving refuge, our home next to Jesus? If we can, and if we're willing to at least try to go into sin no more, then our merciful and healing God will bend down, pick us up, straighten us out, and make us whole. And he will show us that what we were looking for in our sin is not going to make us happy. It's finding our place with him, our home with him. Our good God wishes to gather us, each of us, from the exile of our sin, from the darkness of the lives that we sometimes find ourselves in, into the warmth and the light of our home with him. It's here that we are safe and sound, where we belong, where we can learn and grow and flourish, where we are nourished, where we find rest, where we can be ourselves, and more importantly, where we are loved. Everything else is rubbish. At the end of the day, he is what we are looking for. He is what our hearts are pining for. And if we can go and sit at his side, we will be able to say truly that there is no place like home.